So let's go get a fresh copy of Burke Annual Report. I know that we've used it in some other things and saved a finished version in the finished PDFs folder, but let's go back and reopen this original here. So I'm going to open it with Acrobat, not Reader. So here I am back in my Burke Annual Report. So I want to dress it up a bit. Maybe I want a company logo in here. Maybe I want to have certain words go across here like draft or top secret or something like that. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Control and the minus sign is a quick way to do that, a little bit at a time. On the Mac, that would be Command and the minus sign. And so now to put in a background or a watermark, I basically start the same way that I did my headers and footers. And that is to go to the Tools tab over here at the right-hand side, and the headers, footers, and watermarks are all under the Pages group. So header and footer we did the other day. Right now I want to start talking about, how about a watermark? So I click on watermark and I see three choices: add a watermark, update a watermark, or remove a watermark. And the rules here are basically the same way they were for headers and footers. I cannot update or remove one until I've added one. So right now if I try to say update a watermark, it says, well, we don't have one yet. So I've got to choose OK there. I'm going back to watermark. All I can do at this point is add a watermark. So I'm clicking on that. And that takes me to this dialog window where I can add and remove watermarks. Now right now as I look in the upper left-hand corner, it says I could have saved settings, but as I click there right now, I don't have any saved settings to choose from. Otherwise, I could take backgrounds and watermarks that I've used in other files and have them available as long as I'm sitting at the same computer where those things were saved. The first version I want to explore is text. Notice in my source group, I've got a couple of choices, either a text watermark or a file watermark. Down here it says I can rotate it. I can choose its opacity, which is the opposite of transparency. That is, the higher the opacity, the lesser the transparency, and vice versa. I can also scale this object, picture or text, relative to the page. And with a watermark, I can either have it lay on top of the content of the page or appear behind the page. And then we've also got the transparency, opacity to talk about. Then I can decide where to place it. By default, it's measured from the center of my page, but I can also measure it from the top or the bottom and the left and the right. Then I've also got appearance options here that I can show it or hide it either on screen or when printing or both. And in the rare occasion where I've got one PDF file with different size paper in there, I can decide whether I want that to still be measured exactly from the top of the new size page or the bottom of the new size page, or keep the original position according to the original size paper. So these are all things that we can play with. So to start out with, I'm going to just work with some text. And so maybe this one is going to say draft, or property of, or top secret. Notice by default it types it in there in fairly large letters right across the middle of the screen. Now I can change color here. I can add underlines. So maybe I want it to be red, fire engine red. And then maybe I'd like to see it kind of diagonal on my screen. Well, that's going to be rotation, either positive or negative. By default, I've got 45 degrees one way or the other. And then I can make it bigger compared to the page. So I can go in here and say, well, maybe I want that to take up 100% of the page. Notice it doesn't quite go from corner to corner that way. I might actually make it bigger than 100%. How about 125% of the page? And then I can make the rotation go a slightly different direction if I want. Like maybe I'm not so crazy about 45 degrees. I'm going to try like 50 degrees. And let's see, if I make that negative, it'll go in the same direction it was a moment ago. So that's getting a little more close to the actual corners there, somewhere around 50, 52. Now right now it's appearing on top of the page, which means it covers up all pictures. I could make it less opaque. That is, make it a little more transparent. The lower the opacity, the higher the transparency, and it's still over top of the pictures that way. Or I can say, well, I won't make it quite so opaque, but I'll put it behind the content on the page, so that way I can still see the pictures, and yet everybody can still see that this is top secret or draft or whatever the case may be. So I get to choose on top or behind. And I get to choose either a file, which is usually a picture, or text, and we'll go explore each of these. So right now it's being measured from the center of the page, 0 points, 70 seconds of an inch, from the center of the page, both top and bottom, and maybe that's what I want for that one. And then I can go through and preview the pages by clicking these arrows, see how they will affect each of the pages. But maybe I don't want them on every page. Maybe I want them on, just the first page and not the rest for some reason. Well, I've got page range options that I can set up here as well. Or I could say, don't apply it to all the pages. Just give it to me on from page 1 to page 1. And so now as I preview it, it won't be on page 2 or page 3. And then I'm going to save this in case I want to use it in the future on other documents without having to reinvent the wheel. So I'm going to say save the settings, and I'm going to call this one draft. All right, so there's my first example of a watermark. It can be on top, it can be behind, it can be transparent, it can be bigger or smaller, it can be rotated, it can be placed on the page. Now, apply to multiple doesn't mean multiple pages. We've already seen the page range options. Apply to multiple, as it was in the header and footer, would mean multiple documents. And I'm not going to do that right now. We'll talk about a way to do that later through something referred to, at least in the old days, as batch processing. Now it's called creating actions. So far I'm going to choose OK so that I can see this in this document. And as I go from page to page, I see that it's only on that first page the way I've got it set up so far. All right. Now, maybe for some other document, maybe I would like a different kind of background. So, well, first, let me just show you how to apply that to another document now that you do have it saved. So I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to say Open some other document. And so now I'll go look on my desktop, and I'll go to that Modules 3 and 4 folder. And this time, maybe I want to open up a file named Cover Page. So I double-click to open up Cover Page. It does not have any watermark on it, but I can add one. Let's see, where was that? What command tab was it under up here? Well, that would be Tools. And it's under the Pages group, and it was called Watermark, and we'll come back and do background in a minute. So Watermark, and I'm going to say Add a Watermark. And this time I'm going to say I want to use one of the saved watermarks, like my old friend the Draft Watermark, that affects only page 1 right now. But maybe I could say in this document, I would actually like to apply that to all the pages in this document. And then when I choose OK, there it is on the first page of this document. And in this case, it's kind of hard to demonstrate because I happen to pick one that's only a one-page document. But that one would have gone on all pages if I had multiple page document there. So I can reuse my watermarks that I've created. Now, so far that's a text watermark. But maybe I'd like to demonstrate picture watermarks. So I'm going to close this document. When it asks me if I want to save it, I'm going to say no thanks. So I'm going to put the video on pause, and I would like you to do those things that I've been doing. And feel free to use a different word or call it top secret or put it on top instead of in the back. But let's start with text. And once you've got it set up the way you want and you've chosen which pages you want it to show up on, then go up and save that so you can use it in the future. And then go try some other document and apply it to that other document. You don't necessarily have to save it with that applied, but once you have saved the watermark itself, then go open another document and add that watermark and see how it looks. And when you come back, we will start talking about pictures as watermarks, and then we'll talk about backgrounds. Very similar, but slightly different.